Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Unrestricted Sports. Today, we are talking about the Buccaneers once again, and if they are unbeatable this season. This is going to be different from our Buccaneers rant video, but it is going to cover some of the same topics. But make sure you go check out that video as well, because it covers the Buccaneers-Saints rivalry. And before we get into today's episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Helps out the channel a lot, we appreciate it greatly. So, to start off, we're going to start off with the guy who started this whole conversation, Tom Brady. Tom Brady is undeniably the greatest quarterback of all time. I think that's why it's such a big deal that he went to Tampa Bay. And looking at what Tom Brady has been able to do, let's look what he did last season, where people said that he was falling off a cliff, even though he was operating with subpar talent. He does not have subpar talent in Tampa Bay. I think we all know that. Julian Edelman was hurt, and besides that, he really didn't have anyone to throw to. What he did last year earned him an 88 QBR, or QB rating. In 2001, 2002, and 2003, the years where he won his first two Super Bowls, and then obviously 2004, 92.6, that's where it finally started picking up a little bit. In those years before, where he won his first two Super Bowls, he posted an 86.5, 85.7, and 85.9 QB rating. And people thought he looked pretty good back then. See, the perception is the problem here. Just because Tom Brady slowed down a little bit because he had subpar talent, people forget that if this was back in the early days of his career, you'd be saying he was doing pretty good. But since it's later in his career, and he had just come off, he was only a few years removed from an MVP season and all these other things, people assume, oh, he's fallen off a cliff, even though that theory was outdated about a year after it was made. And to be perfectly honest, he didn't look bad to me. Eye test wise, I saw a guy who didn't have anyone to throw to. There were a few plays that he messed up on, but every QB in the league has that. And he's by far an upgrade over Jameis Winston. He threw for 4,000 yards last year and 24 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Pretty good ratio. He averaged about 253 yards per game. And if you saw what he was working with, once again, pretty impressive. And he completed 60% of his passes. Once again, not bad given what he was working with. So, what does this mean? Well, obviously, we all know what it means. He has far better talent wide receiver-wise this year. But that alone isn't what makes this... Tom Brady alone isn't what makes this team unbeatable, although he was the deciding factor that put this all in motion. There's no denying that. But the reason the Bucs are unbeatable this year is really because of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and Rob Gronkowski. Because let's think about this really quick. O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate were already a pretty good tight end set. Like, they were probably one of the top pairings out there in the league. There were a few teams ahead of them, like the Ravens, who have a pretty good tight end trio. There's other teams that have good tight end sets. But the Buccaneers were up there. Rob Gronkowski had a year off to heal. And in that time, he didn't let himself go. He was working out still. Obviously, it wasn't to the same level as when he was playing football, but he needed that break. I think he's going to come back pretty good. It might not be prime Gronk, but it will be pretty good. Gronkowski is only a year older than Travis Kelce. And people say he's washed, but Travis Kelce just got one of the bigger deals that a tight end's ever gotten, so we have to consider that. And Rob Gronkowski just had a year off where he rested. I think he wants to go all out too, because I think he also has something he wants to prove this year. But going back to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Starting off with Mike Evans, because he's kind of the guy who's been around the longest in Tampa Bay since 2014. Every single year, he has had at least 1,000 receiving yards. he has always been an incredible touchdown pass catcher, with the exception of probably 2015 and 2017, where he only had 3 and 5 respectively. But every other year, he's had more than 8. And his rookie year, he had 12. So, obviously, an incredible wide receiver right there. 1,000 yards per season, 48 touchdowns at this point in his career, 7,260 yards. That's pretty impressive. His drop rates is one of the best in the league. He doesn't drop it very often. And he averages, in recent years, over 17 yards per catch. That's pretty good. Like, let's be real here. If you can throw to a guy and he's going to get you at least 17 yards per catch on average, he's a monster. So you have to you would think, oh well, you have to double Mike Evans, but this is where the unbeatable part comes in. You can't double everyone on this offense because then you have Chris Godwin. Now he only just started getting off last year, but before that he was still solid. His rookie season he had 500 yards, 1 touchdown. That's pretty standard for a rookie to not do as well numbers wise. Obviously we had Mike Evans that we just talked about, but that's a little different because obviously he's quite a bit better than Chris Godwin, despite the fact that Chris Godwin is definitely a wide receiver 1, no doubt about it. He is now by far. The year before last, he had 842 yards and 7 touchdowns. Improvement, pretty good improvement. Over 300 yards improvement and 6 more touchdowns. That's good. Last season, 1,333 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he's been steadily improving, and he's on his rookie deal. So he's going to be looking to get big numbers so he can get another contract in a few years. Because he can obviously has 1 more year after this year. Or no, this is his last year of his rookie contract, I believe. I think he might have a 5th-year option that the team might choose to accept. But besides that, looking at his average yards per catch, he's always been a 15-yard average guy. He's a career 15.1 yards per catch guy. So you can't double Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and then leave Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, and Cameron Brate. You can't leave them. So what are you going to do? You're going to play zone? Well, we know what Tom Brady does to zone defense. He picks it apart. It's one of his staples of his career. Now, obviously, he also picks apart man coverage, but zone he really picks apart. Like, absolutely demolishes it. So, you can't really play zone too much. You have to really stick with man. And how many teams have enough guys that are skilled enough to keep up with these 5 dudes? Not very many. Certainly none that the Buccaneers will face in the regular season. For those of you who need a refresher, Tom Brady played. He played the Saints in 2017. And let's just say, quite frankly, he really kind of embarrassed them. He threw for something like, I believe, 400 some yards, had multiple touchdowns, and beat the Saints. Now, for those of you who are unaware, the Saints really haven't made any acquisitions on defense. All their acquisitions so far have been on offense. So they're really stuck with the same defense plus losing a few pieces, and there's probably some rookies in there. But really, do we expect a rookie to outplay proven talents like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tom Brady, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and Gronkowski? No, we don't. That would be unrealistic to expect of a veteran player who was middle of the road to high end. Not to mention a rookie. It would take a real star talent to actually be able to do that. So we look back at that 2017 game where Brady demolished the Saints, and we say, well, it's basically the same defense. They haven't really improved. In fact, I would argue as far as that they've probably gotten a little bit worse. So you're stuck in this situation where the biggest competition in the division doesn't really have a counter for the Buccaneers. And I think it's safe to say that, barring some sort of miracle, that really, if we're being honest, the Falcons and the Falcons and wow, and the Panthers don't have a chance. Um, I mean, let's be real here. How are you going to stop them? Because the best defense in that division is the Saints, and Brady has very recently picked them apart, and they haven't gotten better. And Brady has more talent now than he did in 2017. And he's also Tom Brady. And also, the Saints have gotten a little chippy with how they've been talking about him and his team, which I'm sure isn't going well in that locker room. Yeah, I just pulled up the yards I finally got the yards to pull up for the stats for that game. Brady threw for 450 yards roughly and 4 touchdowns. The guys who have been poking at Tom Brady's Buccaneers are the same guys who let that happen to them, these defensive players. So really, I'm going to break down the Bucs schedule right now. So we've gotten the Saints out of the way. The only chance the Saints have to win the Week 1 game is the fact that the Buccaneers don't have the same level of cohesion as the Saints probably do. And even then, I'm still probably picking the Bucs Week 1. I have to give them the advantage because the Saints, their main advantage for playing at home is their fans, and they don't have their fans there. Arguably, no team has their fans there, so I guess you could really say that it's really a very even playing field this year for most teams. There's no fans in stadiums, or at least there's no plan to at the current moment. But I don't think it's fair to say that the fans are the reason why the Saints are going to lose. I don't think that would be a valid excuse. I think it's just a factor there of what makes it so hard to play in the Saints stadium. So breaking down the Buccaneers schedule now, because I kind of went off on that tangent. Obviously, New Orleans Week 1. I'm going to give the nod to the Buccaneers with the caveat that it's possible they lose it because obviously it's Week 1 and it's the first game that they're playing together as a team. Although I personally believe that they can overcome that, I have to acknowledge that fact, to be fair. Carolina, at home. Obviously, home field advantage, whatever. But I think Carolina's going to lose there. Who do they have that's going to... Christian McCaffrey? Okay. There's only so many run plays you can do, and once you get behind, running the football no longer is an option. Then they play at Denver. Mile High Stadium. Well, we know how easy it is to throw and kick in Mile High Stadium. I mean, the record for longest kick is there. It's obviously called Mile High Stadium for a reason. I have the Buccaneers winning that, obviously. As much as I like Drew Lock, I don't see Denver beating them. Then you have the LA Chargers at home. Come on, guys. Let's be real here. The Chargers are obviously a good team, but I mean they're going through a QB transition, and it's not like the one the Bucs are going through. And they have decent talent, but you also have to remember Keenan Allen went off at Mike Evans, despite the fact that Mike Evans has like 173 less touchdowns, or 100. Sorry, he has 173 less receptions than Keenan Allen, but he has one less touchdown. So that should tell you how skilled he is. So I think Mike Evans is going to have a day there at home. I think the Chargers lose that, obviously. Then they play at Chicago. They have a QB carousel. The only chance they have is if they're playing Nick Foles. And I don't know if they'll even have Nick Foles at that point. I know I made a bet with Nolan early in the year that I think it would be Foles starting, but obviously that's kind of up in the air now. So at Chicago, I could see them winning that. Then comes pretty much their first hard game. But that comes in terms of really just the organization. It's not really because I'm impressed at all by the team itself, offensively or defensively. And that's the Packers. They're playing them at home. And Green Bay is coming there, obviously, for that. And, their defense was good, but it's kind of suspect because they didn't really play anybody who was good last year, and they really got exposed by the 49ers. And obviously, offensively, they don't really have anyone for Aaron Rodgers to throw to. I have to give that to the Bucs as well. Not because I want to be disrespectful to Aaron Rodgers. As much as I dislike him for what he does on the Lions, I do have to respect the talent that he has. But that being said, if we're being real here, they don't really have anyone who's going to be able to keep up with the offensive weapons of the Bucs, and also the fact that the Bucs defense is top 5 based on last year's performance, and that was with Jameis putting them in bad spots every game. Then they're at Las Vegas, playing the Raiders. Listen, the Raiders might be turning themselves around very slowly, but once again, who do they have? No one. Not really. I mean, they do have some good young talent that's developing there, but do I expect that young talent to be able to outperform proven elite guys? No. That's once again, that's unrealistic. Then they play at the Giants. Well, Eli Manning's gone, so that's one Tom Brady kryptonite that isn't going to be playing in that game. Daniel Jones, I think he's improving. I think he's definitely becoming a better player. And I think that team does have some potential with Saquon and him, but do I think that they're going to be able to beat the Bucs this year? No. New Orleans, they play them again, this time at home. This is late in the season now. This is getting late in the season now. This is when that team has come together. The Saints are not going to beat the Bucs at that game. I just don't see it happening. I think that by that point in the season, they're going to be clicking so well that it's just going to be over before it even starts. Because they might have added Emmanuel Sanders on the Saints offense, but on defense, they're not going to be able to keep up. And let's be real here, Emmanuel Sanders is really the only kind of deep threat they have, and, Michael Thomas is a slant guy. I mean, let's be real here. Most of his passes were on slants. That's not going to be the way that they win this game. It's going to be very hard for them to stay with the Bucs because the Bucs have the ability to just completely air raid that Saints defense, like I've already covered. Then they play at Carolina. Once again, that team is going through a very heavy rebuild right now. I don't see them winning. I don't have Carolina winning very many games this year. They will not be a double-digit team. They won't. I'd be surprised if they manage to pull 5 wins in this division. Then they play at home versus the Rams. Rams are kind of going through another kind of rebuild phase. Lost Gurley, and how do I really feel about that? I don't know. I just don't see the Rams being very good next year either. Sean McVay, I think, is a very good offensive-minded coach, but, he has to have something to work with, too, and that run game was really what he drove his offense through, so he's got to find a new running back. So I don't have them beating the Bucs at home. Kansas City then comes to town, so 2 back-to-back home games for the Bucs. This one will be interesting, because it's a potential Super Bowl matchup. I want everyone to remember that last year Tom Brady almost beat the Chiefs and came within a bad non-touchdown call of beating them. Now, obviously, that happens in sports sometimes, and you have to make sure you're not in the position where the refs can screw you over. But that being said, he nearly won the game against the Chiefs last year with that offense. So, with that being said, I think this will be a very competitive game. And this is the one game that I think I'm kind of torn on because I think the Chiefs had the potential to win it, but I think the Bucs are overall a better team. I think their wide receiver duo is better, and I think their tight end set is better than a combined Travis Kelce. And really, Kansas City's defense isn't really that great. They have Tyrann Mathieu, and that's about it. So, obviously, mad respect to him. He got paid. Good job. But he's only getting paid that much because he's the best that the Chiefs have. He's obviously a good player, but he's the best that the Chiefs have, and he's not really the best at his position. Besides that, you can't name anyone on that Chiefs defense who's really a standout player, who's going to be able to stop. Tyrann Mathieu can only cover one guy. He's not going to be able to cover all 5 of those guys. So I can see this going the Buccaneers' way, and I am leaning towards the Bucs way just because, I think the odds are stacked against the Chiefs in this particular situation. Obviously, come playoff time and potential Super Bowl, this is another matchup. But the Bucs are at home; they're going to be clicking by this point for sure. And if the Bucs are going to click, they're going to be clicking by this point. The Chiefs don't have the best of odds going into this. Like, they're going to be playing, far from home and on the road. And even though there's no fans, it's still travel. So I will give the slight edge to the Bucs, but this is like that Week 1 matchup with the Saints where it could go either way. I'm just going to choose the Bucs in this case. Then they play at home again, so 3 straight home games after a bye week playing Minnesota. They're going to win this game. Minnesota, Dalvin Cook, obviously, he's a really good guy. Adam Thielen, really good wide receiver. But once again, the Vikings lost defensive pieces and they lost offensive pieces. They aren't as strong. And obviously they drafted the young wide receiver talent. But once again, this is like what I've been saying. You can't expect a wide receiver at his age to be able to keep up with the wide receivers on the other team. And with that being said, Minnesota will lose this game. They're coming off a bye week, so they're going to be fresh and be, rehearsed. They're going to be flowing pretty good. But they play at Atlanta. Listen, let's be real here. Atlanta is just like in the same spot as Carolina is. They're not going to be really good this year. They signed Gurley, but let's be real here, guys. Gurley is not what he used to be. The name Gurley instills fear because everyone remembers what he did, but he isn't capable of that anymore with his arthritis problem, which is really unfortunate because it was fun to see him run. He was really, truly interesting to watch play. But with that being said, he isn't the same guy. They're going to use him in like a running back committee role, but that's not the same as Todd Gurley in his prime running back there. Obviously, they have Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, but Julio Jones is only one guy, and Matt Ryan, as much as I think he wants to get back and win a game against Tom Brady, I just don't see him having the talent to do so. Then the Bucs have 2 back-to-back games there. That was a home game for the Falcons. Then they go to Detroit. Well, Detroit, much as I'm a Detroit fan, number 1 overall, I'll always cheer for the Lions over anyone else, even my second favorite team, the Patriots, and my team that I'm kind of very interested in and looking forward to see play and hoping does well in the Bucs. Detroit, I want them to win, but if I think that's a reasonable ask, as much as I think the Lions are going to be good this year, no, that's not a reasonable ask. This is one of the 4 games that I have the Lions losing, so I have the Lions going 12-4. Obviously, I know that for anyone who isn't a Lions fan, that's obviously completely ridiculous, and I understand that. But I have to dream, okay? I'm a Lions fan. Give me a break. And then the last game of the season is against the Atlanta Falcons again, and this time the Buccaneers are at home. Same scenario, but at home, Buccaneers win this game. So that's the Bucs going 16-0 in the regular season, with 2 potential chances for losses. The Buccaneers will most likely be the number 1 seed. I think that that's a very strong assumption. I think that the Bucs are capable of doing what that 2007 team was capable of doing for the Patriots, going undefeated all the way and winning the Super Bowl. Except that the Bucs, I think, have even more talent than that 2007 Patriots team. So I think that they could actually win the Super Bowl fully undefeated this year. And I think it could be a very, very special year for the Bucs. Obviously, there's the chance for 2 losses to get mixed in there. But, the Bucs are undefeated. They're going to be unbeatable, okay? They just have too much talent on offense for any one defense to possibly be expected to cover. The best defense in the league would not be able to cover that offense. It's too overpowering. So with that being said, Bucs fans, you have a lot to look forward to. But with that being said, guys, that will be it for today's episode. Do you also have the Bucs going undefeated? Or do you think that I'm completely crazy, or do you have them losing a couple games in there? Make sure you let me know down below. And yeah, we will see you guys next time. Peace.